Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I'm going to be sharing a summary layout that I created using the Be Yourself perspective. I'm also going to show you a fun way to use stencil 37 on a layout. I have this fun photo of my 3 favorite women. So I've decided to pair some bright colors and floral elements with this Be Yourself perspective. It has a lovely color with a pearl finish that I really enjoy. You can see here that I have a lot of items on my desk. Each month I receive a subscription box filled with samplings, but unfortunately I have collected more than I have used in the past few months. For this page, I have pulled items from multiple kits with the same color scheme and pattern, and I'm going to show you how I mix them all together on my layout. I'm also going to be using a few paper snips on this page. I store mine in these little plastic envelopes. Once they have been cut down, I just tuck them in here and they're easy to find. I'm going to start cutting down some of my patterns and get started with this fun page. I've gone ahead and trimmed down my pattern papers and that white cardstock. The photo is desaturated, but there's still quite a bit of blue, so I want to make that one of the focal colors on the page. When I started pulling items for this layout, I knew that I wanted to use the Be Yourself perspective and that I wanted some fun elements on the layout. I try to stick to no more than 3 colors on my pages. So as I was picking through the patterns, I selected pinks to match the title and blues to match the photo. With this being a summer photo, I also grabbed a bit of yellow to brighten up the page. For my blue, I chose navy blue, which I brought in with that tag. I'm going to tuck that blue tag behind the photo to create a nice little frame and make that photo pop. All of the papers that I'm layering are from 2 different collections. To make sure that they played well together, I chose floral patterns that were similar or had colors from the other patterns I chose. I don't use bright colors often, but when I do, I like to pair them with black and white or gray and white patterns. This really helps to break up the busyness of all the elements. On the right side, I'm going to repeat the patterns and colors with a few paper strips. One of the downsides of getting samplers is that they are usually sized at 6 by 6. So I am going to have to manipulate a few strips here so that I can make them look like they are longer than they really are. There's going to be a floral element here and a book plate, so that space will be covered up later on. I'm going to finish adhering some of these elements onto the page, and then I'll start adding all of the florals to my design. So I have gone ahead and adhere all these patterns down, and I've added some stitching. I realized that I didn't plan a place for journaling, so I tucked a bright pink tag there at the top, and that will just pull out of a pocket. I'm going to start with that beautiful bold title, and then I'm going to build my clusters on the page to balance it out. Below the Be Yourself title, I'm going to add the word together, because these 3 women can always be themselves together. On the right side, I'm going to build a cluster of elements that will hide that gap in the paper and create some flow across the page. I'm going to start with the white book plate perspective, which I'm going to back with some patterned paper. This is the same pattern that I used on the left. I'm just using a pencil to trace the book plate, and then I'll hand cut the paper and adhere in place with some glossy accents. The glossy accents takes a little bit of time to dry, but it does adhere the paper really well onto those acrylic perspectives. That weekend vibes phrase came from one of the paper snip collections, and it makes a great little statement over here. Behind the book plate, I'm going to layer some leaves and flowers. The die cuts and stickers that I'm using are from a few different collections that came in those kits. I chose elements that were within the same color palette as the papers and had similar patterns and textures. I also brought over some more of that navy color with some die cut leaves. Before I place the book plate down, I am going to tie some twine in place and then I'll adhere it to the page. I love adding twine to these little book plates, but I've also added brads and other fun little elements to make it look like it's being held onto the page. That book plate is a great dimensional piece in the cluster, but right now it is one of the only dimensional pieces. So I'm going to layer another flower in the center of that large flower and have it overlap the book plate a bit. Now it starts to feel like it's part of the entire element over there in the corner. On the flower sticker sheet, there were also some leaves. So I'm going to tuck those in place behind the larger flower, and this is just going to add another element of texture and pattern to this space. I'm going to repeat the colors, patterns, and textures on the left side of the page with another floral cluster. Again, I chose a mix of floral stickers and die cuts within the same color palette. The large pink flower is similar to the other one I added, and then I also have an orange and pink flower. Again, similar colors, but different shapes. The last element was a milk bottle of yellow flowers, which does seem odd to place in a flower cluster, but that yellow and blue matches the other flower I added on the right side, and the milk bottle creates almost a frame on the left side of the photo. In this cluster, I added some more navy leaves, and I tucked some bright green leaf stickers behind the large flower, which is an additional color. So I am going to have to find a way to add that color to the other cluster. At this point, I realized that I needed some more of the bright pink in the title. So I grabbed a sticker that says, "Doing what I want," which fits these three to a T. My daughter, niece, and sister love spending time together. And I'm so grateful that my daughter has a woman in her life who loves her as much as I do. When all three get together, you never know what might happen. So now that all the clusters are in place, I want to fill in this blank space. I have some butterfly stickers here that I want to use, and I'm going to use a stencil to create some trails for the butterflies so it looks like they are flying from one set of flowers to the other. Now, I really should have done this before I adhered everything down, but I am going to make this work. This was a bit of an afterthought, but I know that you have all been here. So I'm just going to use some repositionable tape to try to mask off some of the paper areas where I don't want some ink, and I'm going to try to hold the stencil tight as I add those little trails. I chose weathered wood for the ink so that it matched the gray floral paper and it kept them neutral in color. You can see there where I tried to match up the two trails. It is a little bit wonky, but I'm just going to cover that up with a butterfly so you'll never know that I made a mistake. I'm going to pop up these butterflies on the page with some foam tape. I'm going to try to create a nice color balance with the patterns here. And I do end up moving a few around so I could bring repetition to each side of the page. I placed the pink butterfly in the center of the two large pink flowers to create a nice little flow across the page. And then I added the navy blue butterfly next to the navy blue tag and the light blue butterfly up near the book plate. On the left cluster, I tucked in a butterfly that matches that sunflower in the upper right. It has that beautiful teal and yellow combination. Now, since I like odd numbers on my page, I'm going to bring in a fifth butterfly to the top corner. I decided to continue the trail up here to make it look like the butterfly is going off the page. I decided on the green butterfly because we have that leaf color in that left cluster, and there's none of that bright green over here. So this butterfly is going to bring some of that color to this side of the page. As you know, I always struggle with splattering, but I wanted to bring in some more black from that title and the phrases. So I grabbed some black watercolor paint and started splattering in a few areas. I discovered that using a very small paintbrush and very little water mixed with the pigment gives me a little bit more control with those little splatters. For the embellishments, I added some brads to the tags and a little floral cluster above the journaling tag. In one of my kits, I discovered these sweet little heart stickers that are the same color as the title. So I'm going to sprinkle them about over some of those splatter areas. These are a perfect addition to the page and help bring in some more of that color from that beautiful perspective title. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the finished page. This page has so many bright elements which reflect the dazzling personalities of these three lovely ladies. I chose patterns, stickers, and die cuts from multiple collections that would pair well with the perspective I chose and the theme of the layout. I love how the butterflies look like they are floating across the page with the stenciled lines and how well all of the colors on this layout play together. I'm going to share some close-up photos of this layout so that you can see all the details on the page. This vivid color palette was pulled together using multiple collections. I was able to achieve balance by sticking with 3 colors, using similar patterns, and creating repetition with elements on the page. I think my favorite part of the page, other than the photo, are those trailing butterflies I created using the stencil. I want to thank you for joining me for another scrapbook project. If you would like to see more of my projects, you can visit my channel or follow Miss Carrie's Creations online. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.